War Eagle War Rapport family, I am your host, C Dub. We don't believe in moral victories here, but that's the most fight we've seen out of Auburn football in quite some time. We discussed that as well as head coaching candidates, and as usual, what did we see on the latest edition of the Weekend Tailgate?
You are now listening to a War Rapport Weekend Tailgate, brought to you by
Athletic Architect.
It's your boy, I Jones. Be Will, C-Dog, Mike G. Get ready, sit on back as we bring you the War Rapport Weekend Tailgate.
War Eagle, everyone, happy Sunday. Welcome to the latest edition of the Weekend Tailgate. I'm brought to you by Athletic Architects, our show sponsor. Guys, please be sure if you are a student athlete, related to a student athlete, or just looking to get your LLC off the ground, please be sure to head to buildthehouse.com. Shouts out to them for supporting the War Rapport as well as the Weekend Tailgate. Also, we want to thank you guys for hanging out with us. Guys, you're already supporting us because you're here, but you can do a few other things to help us out as well. If you're on social media, please be sure to share this video. Use the hashtag, help people to find our content, help them join the discussion, help them also to join our community. While you're here, smash that like button. That helps us out with our engagement as we're live. And if you're new to our channel, welcome. Please hit subscribe. We would gladly appreciate it. Now, there's also some monetary ways you can support us. Also, you can do that by becoming a member. I can tell you exactly how to do that and why.
Listen, all you got to do is click that join button right now below the video and be a part of the Green Name Gang. Listen, tomorrow I'm going to see how much I can get done with this. I really want to do 2 videos for you guys because I promised you all a video about the offense and ways that we can use things that are already in our playbook to improve our offensive proficiency. I want to do that. That's going to be a shorter segment of just maybe a couple of plays that I'll throw out there. But then the normal watch the film situation with all the plays. I'll try to get through both of those things. Well, all 3 of them, because you'll get an offense, you'll get a defense, and you'll get a special one. We'll see. I'll see if I can get all of those things done this week. Y'all pray my strength in the Lord. But that's going to be for the patrons to be able to get all of that stuff. But if you are a member, you get to be a part of the chat with us on game day, halftime, and post game. So go ahead and make that happen, man. Gift memberships to other people if you're already members right down there in the live chat. If you're on a desktop computer, you can gift memberships to other members of the War Rapport family who have not yet made that commitment. 1 free month on you. YouTube will gift it to them. We'll do the mug giveaway again today, courtesy of GWT2 Energy Consulting Services. So you need to hashtag get your weight up in the live chat right now, and we will do that drawing here in about an hour. Make sure you are present, because if you are not, someone will definitely come in and swoop up your blessing. But yeah, make sure that you go ahead and get that handle right now. Hashtag get your weight up, courtesy of GWT2 Energy Consulting Services, the War Rapport mug. Yeah.
Gentlemen, how are we? It was kind of a late night last night. That game went a little bit longer than expected. Initial thoughts coming off of that. Had time to think. Any new thoughts, guys, before we get into the actual stats of the game?
No new thoughts. We need a new kicker. That's what we need new.
So
yeah.
A continuous thought then.
Yeah.
Because you felt
again,
that
I'm
way.
not saying it's only his fault. I'm not saying that. So don't nobody run and say, man, I go on the War Report said it's all Anders' fault. I didn't say that.
Okay. Well, let's talk about the game. Let's kind of break down the game. We want to do the first 30 and actually discuss the different phases of the game. Let's start by talking about the offense. Offensively, passing game was pretty much non-existent last night. 75 total yards, 7 of 22, no touchdowns. The interception was on the extra point, right? The 2-point conversion, correct?
Yeah.
Rushing was pretty much where Auburn made its living. 256 total yards, 46 attempts, 4 touchdowns. Guys, that's pretty much was the story of the game, was the running game. Ashford actually was the leading ball carrier last night. 18 carries, 108 yards, 2 scores. We saw him be used heavily in the run game in the second half. I'm pretty sure he saw today. Thoughts about the running game and kind of the adjustment that was made in terms of the second half regarding Auburn getting a lot of chunk yards on the ground. I'll start with you, B. Will.
So, Caddy's running back. Will Friend is an offensive line guy, and the Caddy made no bones about it. He said when asked what we were going to see, he said Auburn football running the ball. In his description of what we were going to see with him as head coach, he said Auburn football, he said a relentless effort, no quit, running the ball. And I don't think that they were going to use a lack of offensive line talent as an excuse to do that. So what they did was they did things that make sense. We had big packages. We had 13 personnel, 3 tight ends, offensive linemen. Let's go get it. And we're gonna run to the outside and outflank you with our very fast quarterback. I thought that Robbie was decisive when to run. And that's not just a fact of, hey, well, some of his scrambling yards were in place of passing yards because they were on passing plays. Not everything was designed, but some things were designed, and there were more designed runs than there had been previously for him. Running the ball was going to be how we competed in this game, and it absolutely was how we competed in this game. The downfield passing game is not there. For whatever the reasons are that they're not there, some of it immaturity, some of it a lack of experience. I think they were trying to force some things early with the passing game under Harsin that they said, we're not going to be pressed to force that tonight. We're going to take what's there, but we're going to do what we are best equipped to do. And even if we are not great at it, we're still going to do this and make this work. The effort was there. The production was there on the ground. And that's the most important thing. Our running game, the production is what kept us in that game. It's what got us a lead late in the game. That's why we had a chance here. And kudos to Caddy and the staff. I don't imagine that Ike Hilliard as co-OC was like, hey, man, listen, I really think we should run the ball most of the time. I mean, he's a wide receiver. He's a wide receiver coach. And I don't think that was the MO, but I mean, you do what works, man. It worked. It was our best chance to compete. It will be our best chance to compete for the next 3 games, and it worked. So kudos to the staff for putting that together.
Ike, I'm going to ask you this question. Tank Bigsby had a total of 89 yards on a total of 13 carries, averaging 6.8 yards every time he touched the ball. Could we have gotten him the ball a little bit more last night, you think?
I mean, I think no, just because Jarquez got his fair share of touches as well. Robbie had some design runs as well. So I think we tried to get it to him in the pass game a few times and it didn't work. And if we hit on a couple of those, which were open, he would have had probably close to 150 all-purpose yards and would have led the team in all-purpose yards last night. Because I think that the first screen that we missed to him would have gone for a big gain. The dump off that he tried to hit him in the flat, probably not a big gain, but it probably would have been 7-8 yards, right? So I think you put another 30, 40 yards on his total of all-purpose yards, and he might have been, like I said, right around 150 all-purpose yards last night. So I think they did a good job of getting Tank the ball. He did a good job of being patient as a runner. And then when it wasn't there, he didn't try to dance and get outside like he normally does, right? Like he wasn't trying to do too much. He was doing his job, get upfield. I mean, hell, there were times where he made positive runs out of plays where there was a defender in his face the moment he touched the ball, right? Like he shouldn't have to dance 3 yards in the backfield on the 7-yard set. Like that's just crazy, but he was. And so Tank Bigsby had a hell of a game, man. He went out there and played hard. He did everything he needed to do to help us get that W. So get it to him more. I don't know. I think we did a good job of getting it to him, though.
I think it was a very balanced game as well. When you think about, you mentioned Jarquez, he had 12 carries for 54 yards, averaging almost 5 yards a carry and a score. So we had great production from our backs, and was still surprised and impressed with the fact that Robbie was the leading rusher. He had some amazing runs in scrambling as well as call plays as well. Moving forward with this offense statistically, B. Will, you mentioned that this is what works and this is what the coaching staff will build on, which I agree. But do we see some emphasis on some of the things that Robbie can be able to do in the passing game? Because you are going to have to throw the ball. I think moving forward, you can't expect to continue to be one-dimensional and have success, at least trying to win some of these games that are important. So you think about slants, you think about screens, you think about some of these things that we have seen in this offense. Do we try to emphasize some of those in the coming weeks to at least keep the defense honest?
Well, the thing that we can do immediately is get Robbie to take some heat off the passes. It would be just nothing but 5 yards and behind the line of scrimmage, and you're going to do nothing but throw with touch on these balls. No fast balls. Put somebody 6 feet with a broom standing straight up, throw it over my broom, and now hit the running back as he's flaring out to go. No fast balls. That's it. We hit those, we win that game. There were plenty of easy things. So the coaching staff gave some easy things there. There were some easy things. There were some easy throws to make. Again, at the line of scrimmage, behind the line of scrimmage, short. We hit those combined with the running game. We're good. We're good. As far as hitting more slants are going to be, this offense does not have timing. Okay. We do not have good timing because timing is a luxury afforded by a good offensive line. That means the quarterback not just has the time to turn his back 1-2 turn and know that the receiver is going to be there, but also it's turn my back and not be scared to death when I turn around that I'm going to get plastered. And no quarterback who has played behind this offensive line or any form of it has really had that. Not Robbie, not TJ Finley, not Bo. It's been the problem. The problem is that you can't just trust what you do in practice, because in practice, nobody's going to just blindside me. Not really blindside, but nobody's just going to tattoo me in my ribs if I turn around and just say, I'm gonna do my count, I'm gonna step back, plant, release. No, you don't have that time in the real game. And even if you did have it on a certain play, you don't think you have it, because over the course of the game so far, however many drives we've had, I haven't had the time that I had in practice. So you get antsy, you run quick, you're quicker to run than to just wait. You're not reading to see, all right, maybe I have room in this pocket if I step that way. No, you don't think about it. You're like, no, I'm not trusting my health and safety here. I need to be productive. So let me do what's going to work. And luckily for Robbie, that boy is quick. He is quick. So I don't think they'll overemphasize more of the passing game. I think it'll be, let's work on just getting this easy stuff down. And I think we probably see them get a little more creative in the run game, honestly. Remember, they didn't have that long. They did not have that long. They did not throw the kitchen sink of the run game. I didn't see Jarquez and Hunter on the field behind Robbie. I want to see it. I want to see it. We are there. Like, are we too good for some Georgia Tech? No, we're not too good for that.
Yeah.
We are not too good for triple option.
If you saw my Twitter last night, I was advocating for it. I was like, bro, let's stop pretending like we can throw the ball and let throwing be a surprise. We just gonna line up three backs if we need to back there.
Yeah. So that we are not too high and mighty for anything that works. And I think you could see us reaching deeper into the bag of tricks for the run game, and then just tightening up again the easy things. The easy things I think can be corrected immediately. Anything more than that, timing. Slants require timing. Slants require timing, trust, and accuracy. And those are three things we haven't had so far from the passing game this season. I don't think we're going to get that so far this year. I think Robbie can have a better passing game. I do. Like, he can. We said this about Bo, or very early in his career. He's a streak shooter. Early it was he's got to complete something, and then he gets a little loose, and then he starts completing everything. Robbie can be that, but he hasn't had one game this year where he's been able to get some early completions going, and everything starts working. So because of that, I don't expect them to try to harp on that. Like, hey, man, let's just get you going. Like, no, we're not going to get you going. Run. Let's do what works. We got stuff that works. We got plenty of running backs. I think that's what they'll do going forward.
Let's go ahead and pivot and discuss the defense. Let's talk about the stats there. The defense total had 77 tackles, 5 sacks, 10 tackles for loss, 3 QB hurries, gave up a total of 370 yards, 357 yards through the air, and 13 yards rushing. All in all, hard to be mad at the defensive effort, especially in the second half, where it seems like they sped up Will Rogers' clock a lot. And I think we saw the offense shift dramatically for Mississippi State, and it wasn't a repeat performance as it was a year prior, which I was proud of and happy to see. The defense was led by Derek Hall, who had 8 total tackles, 6 solo tackles, 2 sacks, 3 tackles for loss. Had a heck of a game. In fact, the defensive line played amazingly in that game. Thoughts about the Auburn defense, thoughts about the defensive line. I'll start with you, Ike. How impressed were you with their effort last night?
Defensive line played lights out, man, because we did bring some blitzes, but a lot of it was just whipping the guy in front of you, man. It wasn't no exotic twist stunts or anything like that. It was literally Derek Hall just being like, you know what, this play, I'm just going to get around the edge faster than he can get into his set. Jeffrey Emba deciding, I'm just going to put this tackle back in the lap of the quarterback and then go get to him.
Yeah.
They were just beating people last night, man. And that's the defensive line I was hoping we were going to see the entirety of the season, just causing havoc where people who are attempting to get back and pass just don't have time to do it. When they didn't get to the passer, they were being intelligent about getting their hands up into the passing lane. Like, I was just like, where did this defensive line come from? Like, they were dominating that game after the first couple of drives. First couple of drives, it was looking like, oh Lord, we finna be out here just on skates all night, bro.
Yeah.
Right.
But when they turned up, they couldn't be blocked. When they turned up, they could not be blocked. They forced Mississippi State to turn into a short passing team. Because if he had to hold the ball more than about 2 seconds, he was going to have somebody in his lap. So 5 sacks last night, a lot of QB hurries, a lot of tackles for loss, forced 5 fumbles last night, recovered 2. Like, that's insane, man. They were out there putting helmets on guys, being disruptive. I loved what the defensive line was doing last night.
B. Will, your thoughts about secondary? We saw some people in unique positions due to injury. Simpson was playing some safety, got a pick in the game. Your thoughts on the secondary and how they performed? Talk about J.D. Rhyme, the job he did at corner. Just what was your thoughts overall with the secondary, given the challenge that they was faced with last night?
You know, it's hard to look at how we played last night on defense, and I'm trying not to say too much, but we didn't have the right guys on the field most of the year. Not that we had the wrong guys necessarily on the field, but what we didn't say was, let's put everybody who we think can be a baller out there, and let's start the process of combining their ability to ball with the experience and know-how that they'll get from playing. Because J.D. Rim got out there. I want to call him Rhyme, but the announcers called him Rim. I'm guessing they did more research than me about how to pronounce his last name, so I'm going to say J.D. Rim. And Caden Bridges, who I know Donovan Kaufman was out, and that's why both of them weren't going to be in the game necessarily if Kaufman had played.
And then Puckett got hurt like on the first series.
Yeah.
Right. So we were down some experience. You know, our defensive players, our defense looked better from on the second and third levels because we had different guys out there. That's what I think. Now, I don't know what caused the defensive line was the same defensive line. I think they rushed more people. Second half, they didn't just try to say, hey, let's just cover. No, they were like, okay, let's just go get this dude. And we're going to beat the offensive line. And it worked. Our secondary played very well. Now, the pressure up front made the secondary look much better in the second half than they might have been, because early when we weren't getting that pressure, I mean, it looked like it did on their comeback last year when they came back on this. It looked like,
But so there were a couple of coverage sacks out there too.
there absolutely
they
were.
did
Absolutely.
a great job of when the pass rush wasn't getting there. They played good coverage on the. Man, I'm so proud of the defense. I'm sorry, them boys balled last night, dog.
They did.
Yeah.
They did. And there was just so, you wonder, okay, I'm seeing these players. Now, JD Rim, again, hey, he makes an interception late when he slipped. Then that's a win, right? We got a lot of what ifs about what would have made it a win. But he was in position. He was not out there looking lost and getting turned around 10 ways. He was in position and he was ready to play, and he was productive. You're telling me he couldn't have been on the field sooner than Mississippi State?
The ninth game before last night. He had played some.
He had played some, not enough, but he did play
not
some.
a lot. Sure. Yeah. I'm just moving Simpson to safety. Yes. If he's got trouble in coverage, but we know he's a very physical tackler, that's what you do to corners who have some trouble covering. You can see, hey, man, listen, you're physical. You're fast enough to be in the secondary, but you're not quite the combination of speed and agility to stay with the best wide receivers. Why don't you get back there, get the bird's eye view, see everything that's happening? You can make that play because you're physical enough to do it. Yes, that makes sense. Why are these changes just now happening? And again, trying hard not to inject my very personal thoughts about what I believe and know was happening behind the scenes. There's no way that we have this many players who could have contributed just getting on the field. It should not happen like that. Put your players on the field, see what you got. This sticking with the seniors or sticking with the most experience, that's great. If I'm 9-9-0, if I'm 9-8-1, coming in, I'm playing for something, and I don't know, man, these guys are really just balling and everything is working. Stuff was not working. We should have been torn it down and see what works. I'm so disappointed that it just happened, but it again, another reason to justify the Harsin had to go. And I'm so proud. I'm like, I was just so proud of this defense. We early in the year, we saw Penn State, and we saw the defense buckle early in the third quarter. And I was like, nah, this isn't the same. This something's different. Something's wrong. And it wasn't just the fact that the linebackers aren't as good because of Kobe McClain. It's this effort I saw right here, in spite of the offense giving them nothing the first half. The defense gave the offense every opportunity. They set the plate for the offense continuously throughout the whole game. Even when they gave up some touchdowns, they still gave them turnovers as well. They set the plate, and the offense took them a minute, but they rose to the occasion. This defense was the reason that we had a chance to win this game. So proud to see that effort in that spirit from this team. It felt good to see that again.
I see some people in the comments mentioned that we saw some new faces at linebacker. We did see the return of Cam Riley, and there's Walt Super Chat. How about those linebackers that played that we haven't seen all year? They played well and knew where to be. Thoughts on that, gentlemen, before we move to special teams?
I mean, there was definitely better linebacker play than I thought there was going to be because of how much they were going to have to be in coverage.
Yeah.
The issue has not really been coverage for the linebackers. I thought it was going to be an issue just because they hadn't played well all season, but issue really hadn't been coverage for our linebackers. It's been in the run fits, and that's not a thing that you're going to see a lot against Mississippi State.
Right.
But nonetheless, Barton Lester was out there playing ball. Cam Riley was out there doing his thing. Owen Papo, actually, somebody was saying last night they didn't think Papo had a good game. I've gone back and I've watched a little bit of the film. I haven't watched the whole game again. I don't feel like Papo had a bad game.
Second leading tackler last night.
So he's actually in the top 10 in tackles in the SEC right now. Mm-hmm. Imagine if he actually made all the tackles he was there for. Like that, let that sink into your brain a little bit. Him being in the top 10 in the conference in tackles, and he misses quite a few of them.
Yeah.
listen, I see why people like him so much because of the measurables. But I'm like, yo, if you were always there, bro, when you were supposed to be, and you actually made the tackle,
We talking
that boy
about you
be
being a millionaire in a
yeah.
few months. In a few months.
Good
So,
lord. But yeah, no, linebackers definitely played a good game. Looking forward to seeing how that translates to a more run heavy team next weekend.
let's talk special teams. All right. Okay. 1 punt return, 1 for 5 yards, 3 kick returns, 3 for 61 yards, punted the ball 7 times, averaged 44 yards per punt. Anders Carlson went 2 for 3, missed a critical one, of course, in overtime. Guys, let's not even waste time on this. Let's just talk about the main thing here. How much of Anders Carlson realistically you think we'll continue to see moving forward?
You know what?
I think
Go
that
ahead,
is actually Thomas Jones jumped in here and asked, should Anders Carlson kick again this year? Asking for a friend.
Yeah.
You know what? Speaking of which, somebody hit me up last night. He told me I didn't have to give him credit. I'm going to give him credit. Walt Taylor said, is there any chance? Do you think the reason they haven't played McPherson is because they didn't want to burn his red shirt? I was like, huh. The only reason that makes a lot of sense in relation to kickers is because kickers don't leave early for the NFL. So it makes sense to save a kicker's red shirt, because if he's going to be as awesome as you hope Auburn kickers usually are, then you don't play him for 6 games and forego 12 games or 13 games in 2020, I don't know, 6, whatever.
Still got Evan McGuire though.
You do have him. So I'm not poo-pooing on that at all. But I do think that's why you don't play McPherson yet. I'm like, oh, that's fine. So by that math, and he was saying there's a good chance we see McPherson this week, because you can't burn his red shirt even if he plays in the bowl game.
There's the question from Stephen Bradley. Can our freshman kicker finish the season without harming his red shirt? The answer to that is yes.
Now he can.
Yeah.
So if you were playing, well, I guess the irony is if you wanted to play in a bowl game, right? We say, well, no, we're going to play 3 games in a bowl game, so we play them against Texas A&M. Yeah, but you got to win now 3 games, and you had a better chance of winning Mississippi State if you have somebody with a bigger, more accurate leg playing Mississippi State. So our chance at a bowl game may have been last night. That may have been our chance at a bowl game. So it's unfortunate that we didn't get that one. It's not that Bama's unbeatable. It's not. We know Bama's not unbeatable, but we know what our deficiencies are. And we still aren't a good matchup for Bama. That's not a great matchup for us on the road. So the crazier things have happened, but as far as when it makes sense to play a freshman kicker, the freshman kicker who was supposed to be like the can't miss kicking prospect, I think that was probably last night for the sake of having him contribute. And
I would have rather him play last night and then sit out Western Kentucky.
Oh yeah. See, yeah. That would have made more sense.
And then he would have been available for the bowl game, no problem.
For sure. No,
what about an idea if you bench Anders for 2 games, Mississippi State and A&M, that you can't go back to him later?
Why can't you? It's his last year.
I would say, why can't you bench him mid-season? But I mean,
listen, I'm with you there. But yeah, I mean, listen, man, make your kicks, and nobody has to have this conversation.
We're not talking about
kick it into the end zone. We don't have to have this conversation. Like, I'm not worried about the fragility of his mindset at this point in time. I'm worried about winning ball games.
Right.
I'm with you. Absolutely. I mean, if you want to talk fragility of his mind, I don't know how strong you can be mentally at this point anyway. So, I mean,
you're doing all the missing, so yeah.
B, how you doing on time? You good? We can talk coaching after the break. I want to grab some comments real quick. Appreciate you guys for commenting, as well as those who super chatted us. I'm going to run through some of those. Florence Tiger, welcome. Thanks for becoming a member. Corey Weber asks, are we pre-gaming for the basketball game tomorrow night? Thoughts, guys?
I plan to do a pregame tomorrow, yes, for basketball. So,
yeah.
So, Corey, we expect you there, sir, as well as many of you others who are definitely excited about the basketball season. Virginia double dribble, by the way, in case anyone
Definitely.
asks. War Down PJM says, any chance we see some 2-back sets with Tank and Hunter? If Robbie gets better at recognizing the D 2-backs and the RPO running game could be a winning combo. False, guys.
Yeah,
I
man.
don't see any reason why it couldn't be a part of it. I do think with an additional, because I'll say this again, a 2-back set has been in our offense all season long. We've seen it more than one time this season. So I think with more time to game plan, you might see it implemented into that game plan more often. So I'm not asking them to reinvent the game or to reinvent the offense. I'm just asking them to call different plays that exist within it. That's it. So definitely a possibility, especially if you have lost your confidence in your quarterback's ability to complete passes downfield. Let's figure out more inventive ways to get the ball into the running back's hands. Yeah, we could do that. They had 2-back sets that they've run screens off of this year, right? Like, it doesn't just mean it's got to be a handoff. There's a lot of ways that we can run things that we've run this year with both front running backs on the field at the same time. Actually, with all 3 running backs on the field at the same time, but we can talk about that when we go watch the film.
Ben Bloodworth says, last night's game was Rocky 1. We lost, but proved ourselves and won over the crowd. Rocky 2 is next week. Can't wait to knock out Jimbo War Eagle. And that brought a smile to B Will's face. So that was every bit of worth of the $5, Ben. Appreciate you for the super chat. We agree. Cleveland Brown says, last night proves that Auburn is capable of winning games with what we have. Just had the wrong guy behind the wheel.
Yeah.
I mean, last night proved a lot. Last night proved a lot. Just watching the sidelines, just in general. When players came off the field, watching the coaches get in their face, not necessarily to even scold them either. It was just to really settle them down and coach them up. What you about to say?
That's a question that I had, right? Like, what prevented all of that energy and enthusiasm from happening? Was it just because Cadillac was the head coach? I'm talking about from the other coaches, right? Like, because Cadillac could have been on the sidelines doing all of that stuff and not been the head coach, right? Or was he asked, hey, this is what I need you doing? So he had to focus on this thing. And because he didn't have to get in there, I just don't understand. Well, I do understand a lot of the attitude that happens with a team is reflective of the attitude of the coach, and the attitude that Cadillac has, I think, fits the team better than what Coach Harsin has as far as his demeanor. But man, it's insane to see the difference in, I think, specifically, not just sideline posture is one thing, because Cadillac would not stand still. He was super engaged the entire time. Like, now this is a thing people complained about Coach Harsin all the time. He doesn't seem to care. Cadillac was invested, bro. You could see in his brain, if he had a year of eligibility left, he would have went and put on some pads.
I love Duke's Twitter post. I don't know if y'all saw that.
The coach he's retiring from being a coach. He's about that, but walk on Cadillac Williams. Yeah, I saw that.
yeah.
But yeah, you could just see the level of intensity that he had. I think that's the good word. His intensity level was super high, and that permeates. But the thing to me that it was most indicated by was the fact that we were losing at halftime, but we were not out of that game, because they came back out at the half convinced. According Cadillac he told them, and if you watch the post-game presser that's up on the channel, he said that he went to the halftime. He's like, we're gonna go win this game in the second half, guys. He went in and sold to those guys, and they basically came back to him as like, Coach, we got you. We got you, Coach. We're not going to let you. Now, they didn't win, but still, we have gone into half times and been behind and had opportunities to come out and win games in the second half and got run off the field.
Right.
This game, it was the exact opposite, man. They came out with fire, and we talked about it during the halftime show. We were like, man, we could have had an opportunity to give Mississippi State a dose of their own medicine, come out in the half and overcome this. But Mississippi State had momentum going into the half. So it's like you kind of saw it coming last year. It's like, man, they didn't started to figure us out. We didn't have any momentum going into the half.
Right.
They just came back out of halftime and was like, we're not losing.
Right.
We're not going to lose this game. And they went out there and they played their butts off for another half of football, and it was beautiful.
First time Auburn outscored Mississippi State 27-9 in the second half. In Cadillac's first game, Auburn outscored an opponent by multiple scores for the first time this season.
Yeah. Second half woes was not a thing this week.
Yeah.
Very telling. And we'll get into coaching after this break. Guys, what we need you to do is help us out. Please share this video on your social medias, Facebook, Twitter. Use the hashtag. Also, while you're here, help us with our engagement as we're watching live. Smash that like button. Get those likes up. Subscribe if you are new to our channel. Let's pause to acknowledge the sponsors of the War Rapport.
This edition of the War Report is made possible by our generous sponsors. AuburnSports.com. For news and notes on all things Auburn sports, head over to AuburnSports.com. Athletic Architects. For young athletes looking to secure their financial futures, let Athletic Architects help you start to build your financial house. Head over to BuildTheHouse.com. And our giveaway sponsor, GWT2 Energy Consulting Services. If you want the best in the business at restaurant logistics, check out our friends at GWT2Energy.com.
Special thanks as always to the sponsors of the War Report. Thank you to those of you who have already joined and gotten your green name. We are looking for more of you to step up and become members of the War Report community so that we can have the biggest, most radical fan base of Auburn fans in one space, talking about Auburn sports in a very enthusiastic and loving way. And sometimes a little mean, because y'all know how we get as fans. We say mean stuff sometimes. I apologize if I said anything mean to anybody. I meant it though. But $5.99 will get you to that space of being a patron. $3.99 supporter level, game days, halftime and post game member only chats. Mondays or throughout the week. I don't know how we're going to do basketball yet, but throughout the week we'll be doing watch the film sessions, so you guys can get a piece of that if you are a member of the War Report. If you are a member and you want to gift that membership or gift a membership for 1 month to someone else, you can do that right now from the live chat. Gifting memberships is really easy. Just click the button, tell YouTube how many you want to give away, and they will randomly assign it to other people who have not yet taken that plunge into the family. We are doing a giveaway again, sponsored by GWT2 Energy Consulting Services. Hashtag get your weight up in the comments right now. We'll be doing that drawing here in just about 20 minutes. You have to be present in order to win. Hashtag get your weight up, and we will do a drawing for a free War Rapport mug, sponsored again by GWT2 Energy Consulting Services.
Gentlemen, let's pick back up where we left off, talking about coaching. I got a few questions to ask here as it regards to coaching, but let's look at some of the stats that we kind of attribute to coaching, and let's talk about penalties. 14 of 115 yards, perhaps maybe the most penalties we've had all year, despite some of the efforts for last night. 15 first downs. We were 6. Is that right? 6 of 28 on third down. Wow. 0 of 2 on fourth down conversions. We were 5 of 6 in the red zone. We did win the time of possession, which isn't saying much considering our opponent. But guys, let's talk about the penalties. Now, one of the things that I've been pleased to say is that
should have been 6 of 18 on third down. Sorry,
6 of 18. Okay, that was okay. I was like,
a lot
Lord,
third down.
how are we still in this game?
Yeah.
All right. So what I want to ask you guys is this: is over the past 2 weeks. Over the past 2 weeks, Auburn has won the turnover battle. Auburn has only turned the ball over once, and that was on a 2-point conversion, right? How does Auburn then begin to address some of these penalties? Because, again, there were penalties at times in this game that really hurt Auburn. So, obviously, you know that's going to be a point of emphasis moving forward. And as always, something you have to consider when Auburn goes on the road. And in an environment like Mississippi State, just cowbells galore. Coming back home, it's reasonable to expect that we'll see improvement in terms of penalties. Your thoughts, guys?
Yeah, so a couple of penalties were BS. So, you know, you can take those off of that total. But
Sure.
the thing that they needed to come in better prepared for was the delayed snap that Mississippi State was doing. What they would do is they'd have Will Rogers clap his hands, but then the center would delay in actually hiking the ball. And initially we were going off of the clap. So when he
Right.
clapped his hands, they would go, right? Because, they're not known for doing like ghost claps or anything like that. So it's like a clap, but they would clap and then he would like wait 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, then hike the ball. And we jumped off sides a couple of times on that.
Mhm.
Offensively, the pre-snap penalties of like alignment. There was one play in particular where Robbie called for Shed to come in motion, but Shed was lined up as the end man, so he technically couldn't come in motion. And Shed actually knew he wasn't supposed to come in motion. If you see it, he started to do it. He's
He
like,
hesitated.
he was
He
like,
hesitated.
but I ain't supposed to. Okay, if you say so. And he went ahead and did it. So like that was just like a thing of not understanding what the play call / alignment was specifically from Robbie on that play. And then we had like one other procedural penalty, right? And so there are things that you can clean up in discipline as far as just kind of understanding some things. But for the most part, I don't think the penalty, like there was a couple of penalties that gave them first downs, but for the most part, I don't think the penalties hurt us. And the other ones that did hurt us, I think were kind of bull. So overall, I wasn't super upset with the penalties that we had this game.
B?
Yeah, agreed. I wasn't upset with the penalties. For those reasons, the delayed snap was cause of some. The cowbells was the cause of a couple. I know that one in particular where Wright got hit with a unnecessary roughness or a late hit or whatever it was. It really seemed like couldn't hear the whistle through the cowbells because I don't think he'd be trying to hurt the team. We didn't seem like an undisciplined group out there. And the blindside block they hit him with was BS as well. So again, I'm always, and it's not that, I mean, this is not directed at us for making this segment and put it on there, but penalties are not just a coaching statistic to me. It's circumstantial. It is whether those penalties are accurate or not. And we've been on the bad side of some inaccurate penalties this entire season, to be honest with you. So, but it wasn't the number one problem. I don't think. It wasn't the number one problem with this game. I think it's more a factor of playing on the road. So to your question, see, I definitely expect it to be better at home. I don't expect us to get near the number of penalties, whether on offense or defense, this weekend against Texas A&M.
And again, I think one of the biggest things that I was pleased with is we saw clear adjustments in the second half. Something that we've been clamoring for much of the season is where are the adjustments? What is your counterpunch to their counterpunch? When they begin to take away what was working, what's the net? Are you thinking 2-3 steps ahead? And it looks like for one of the first times this season, Auburn said, you know what? Let's do something different in the second half. And so that's when we begin to see some success, not only on the offensive side of the ball, but the defensive side of the ball. Thoughts on that, guys, and how refreshing it was to see that.
So it seemed like the offense wasn't working the first half and it worked the second half. That's so as far as, hey, we instead of scoring points the first half and then their defense adjusting and then us not being able to do anything to counter it, it seemed like execution in the second half and some different calls, different personnel groupings was just part of the plan. It seemed like we got out of trying to cover so much and just said, let's go get this dude second half. And I like that. I like that a lot. And I'm still, it seems like we were hitting our head against a brick wall for a lot of the year going, this is what needs to work. We can do it. We just got to keep doing it and try harder. And that's not the right answer. Maybe in the pros, maybe in the NFL, you're committed to a scheme and you've been a defensive coordinator for 30 years and be like, hey, I'm telling you, this works. I stopped Joe Montana with this defense. Yeah, sure. You run in Tampa too. I'm telling you, this works. Sure, I can see why you have a scheme and it works because you've run into perfection with Pro Bowl players and Hall of Fame players, and you stopped high-powered offenses, and you can say, I know this works. I know that y'all are the problem, so y'all are going to have to get better. But in college, it's not the same thing. The college is mostly, I think, about giving the kids something to do that works for them and collectively works for you as the person scheming it up. All right, so what can you do? You do. If it's what I want to do I have exactly what I need? No, I got to change it then. I have to change it because I can't ask kids to be professional players. They're not. Every now and then you get a consummate pro that is just beyond his years and ability and strength and mental acuity when it comes to the game. And they can be a linchpin that you can turn your defense either direction and do different things with. If you don't have those guys, you change what you're doing to fit the talent that you have. And I think that was a coaching credit. That was definitely a credit to coaching yesterday. That was the biggest difference I saw in coaching between Harston and all the guys that left and Caddy and the staff that remained. And that was a big win for us.
Got a comment here, says, love the fact that a lot of young guys played. I like that as well. Definitely something. And it just seemed like we saw a lot of more guys, different new faces played. Dylan Brooks again. Saw him, haven't seen much of him this year. Just faces that we haven't seen all year. That was good to see. I think that puts kind of a bow on our recap of the game. We talked about it from a statistical standpoint. Gave Caddy a lot of love for the job he did in terms of keeping the energy high, keeping those guys encouraged, even if they made mistakes on the field. It's been a good week for Caddy. And people are still loving what Caddy is doing. Let's kind of talk about, and we said we were going to discuss this. Who do you guys like? Who would you like as AU's next coach? And I think with Caddy, if we start to see some success, we start winning some games down the stretch, I expect Caddy's name to kind of pick up a little steam. But we know who the usual suspects are. And guys, you can let us know in the comments who you would like to, who you think should be Auburn's next head coach. The usual suspects, the guys at the top of the board: Lane Kiffin, Hugh Freeze, Dion. There's been mention of Jeff Grimes, Baylor's OC, former assistant at Auburn. Those are the name of few. Based off of those, or you may have a guy that you're thinking of who may not even be mentioned at all. But who is a guy that if Auburn was to hire this guy or announce this guy in a few weeks, you would be really good with that pick? Who would like to go first?
I'm looking at Christian Crawford here. He brought this up. He said, I saw a tweet that said, I don't believe Deion Sanders could do anything for Auburn football that Cadillac Williams isn't doing already. He says he agrees that Caddy will be able to recruit too. The way I disagree, but I disagree in the sense that what Caddy can do for Auburn, Deion can do for anybody who's ever heard of football. And that's the biggest difference. It's like the net that Caddy can cast on Auburn. He can have this effect on these players because they are here. And it means something for them to see his star downtown on the sidewalk and to see highlights of him in an Auburn uniform and to look at he could show his SEC championship gear, and he means something here. But Caddy doesn't have that same effect on somebody that we're recruiting out of Louisiana or Texas or Mississippi. If they grew up a Bama fan and they hated Caddy because he was killing them. I mean, that's the difference between Caddy and Deion. Deion, everybody who, black players especially, who have heard of Deion Sanders, it's almost completely a wrap right now. We are talking about being able to poach top tier defensive talent away from Kirby Smart in Georgia, away from Alabama, away from LSU. And that's not something that I can say with certainty would happen if Caddy was leading the charge as the head coach in recruiting. I think Caddy would do great recruiting, but he is not what Deion Sanders is. Deion Sanders is a household name. Caddy is a household name in Auburn households. Deion Sanders is damn near universal. And that's the difference between them. Because of that, I think that there's value to Deion. That our segment, we did a pod with Scotty from Off Script Media, Off Script Vids. We're following them. We retweeted it. You can find it on. Did we post that on YouTube, Ike?
It is the short. I posted the short on YouTube. Just a
The
little
shorts
clip
on
of it,
YouTube.
yeah.
So there's a clip on YouTube, but you can find it at the Auburn Express, which is where the podcast. This is the last episode we posted. Listen, he talked me into Dion. He talked me into it. So I'm like, man, he's right. There's no what recruit would say no to this. You see Alabama over there waning. You see Georgia. You're like, yeah, they're stacked. But two things are happening at Auburn that if you get a Dion, not only do we have, well, excuse me, three things are happening. You get a head coach like Deion Sanders, NIL here. We're about to just pop the top on that for real for the first time. And it's the reason why all these recruits are like, oh, Auburn about to get a new head coach. No, that's cool. I'm still listening. You know why they're still listening? Because NIL's about to pop off. If you get on board now that there's a payday that there wasn't last year, that's number one. Number two, the other thing that's happening at Auburn is the cupboard, while not bare, is a lot more bare than anywhere else that you would want to go that has the pool of what Auburn is about to have and would have with Deion Sanders. There's no offensive lineman that wouldn't say, you're going to tell, nah, man, you ain't playing. Listen, we need you. Not only have we not been good at offensive line, we are also thin at offensive line. Perfect recipe to tell some highly rated guys, you're going to play day one. Easy. And it's the table is set in a way that is not set anywhere else. And that's why Deion here would just have this monument. We wouldn't just be we wouldn't be filling our 23 class with guys that we have been after. We're going to be filling our class with guys that have already committed to other places. It would happen instantly. I'm stumping for Prime a little bit, aren't I? I'm stumping for Prime a little bit. I am.
Okay.
Now, I still don't know how realistic it is. Like, I love the idea, but I think there's less chance of that happening than us getting a Hugh Freeze or Lane Kiffin. I think those are the two most likely hires, is a Lane Kiffin or a Hugh Freeze. I mean, we all saw the game yesterday against Arkansas that Liberty had hit with Hugh Freeze, the head coach, and he basically said, "Hey, y'all want me? Come get me." essentially what Hugh Freeze said. So, I mean, there's definitely some smoke there. I don't know if he's prime candidate. I don't know if he's our number one target as head coach. I don't. And that's really what's going to come down to. I think at worst we get Hugh Freeze, because what he said was, so at worst, so if we can't come to terms with Lane, if Ole Miss wants to up the dollars to try to keep him, or if Prime says, you know what, not ready for Power 5, I'm gonna stay down here because I like the effect I'm having down here, I think we get Hugh Freeze. And honestly, I think Hugh Freeze would be the best coach we've had since Tommy Tuberville.
Big statement. Big statement. So Prime is your guy, but in terms of likelihood, you're leaning Hugh Freeze.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Walt Taylor, appreciate the super chat. He says Hugh Freeze putting an accomplishments on his resume yesterday, referring to the win on the road against Arkansas. Thoughts about that? You have some thoughts about Hugh Freeze. What do you think about this board of candidates? Who do you like? Who you kind of meh on? Talk to me, sir.
So I'll start with, I'll piggyback and first say, I think all of the things that people have been saying about the recruiting prowess or the brand that is Coach Prime coming is an automatic home run. You literally can't miss in there. It's going to be about what kind of staff he puts around him. And if you listen to our guy Scotty talk on the Auburn Express, he said that Deion is about winning. Deion Sanders is about winning, so he is going to make sure he puts the kind of staff necessary to win, because he knows what a winning brand of football looks like. He's more of a CEO than he is a guy who you care about his X's and O's prowess. He's just going to manage the entire operation. I think that that's a great thing. The next big name that a lot of people are talking about is Lane Kiffin. And I think Lane Kiffin's a great coach. I think he's a great offensive mind. He probably is the lowest. If I were to rank the list, Lane Kiffin would probably be the lowest on my list, because I think he's great at offense. But for whatever reason, you can say it's because of his resources. You can say you can give me a bunch of reasons as to why this is. He can't ever put a competent defense on the field, ever. I don't care where he's been. Lane Kiffin, for whatever reason, cannot put a competent defense on the field. And he hangs his defense out to dry a lot. And I just don't know if that's championship football yet. I haven't seen it from him yet. And he has enough coaching experience for me to be able to see that, right? Like you can say, well, what has Cadillac won as a coach? Nothing, but he hasn't been a head coach. Lane's been a head coach.
Right.
So
Right.
why do we not see championships from him with his brand of football? That's going to pivot me to the next person, which we just talked about, which is Hugh Freeze. I'm going to save Cadillac for last. Hugh Freeze, again, hasn't necessarily won championships, but I think that he has done more with less than anybody has.
Right.
In whatever, like in any of these names that you're talking about, he's done more with less consistently.
Right.
Now he's going to be in a position where he'll actually have the ability to have resources to do something really good.
Right.
And I can't find somebody who tells me that Hugh Freeze is a bad recruiter. I can't find him. You go find somebody who has had an opportunity to be recruited by Hugh Freeze who tells me Hugh Freeze is a bad recruiter, then they will be in the minority. Hugh Freeze knows how to go and get talent. He's just never been in the closest he was into being in the position to do it was Ole Miss, and he was still outgunned at Ole Miss and was putting winning football on the field at Ole Miss. Now, he has the same issue that I have with Lane Kiffin, which is championship. Like I'm not gonna say I don't care about the off the field stuff. The off the field stuff to me, he's had time to atone from that stuff, and hopefully he's changed. I have literally no way of knowing that because I don't know that man personally. But what I do know is that he has been outgunned and still won football games. He has been outgunned and still won recruiting battles. I think with the right infrastructure around him, he can put championship football, and he's not the type of coach that's going to leave his defense hanging out to dry. That's why he's a rung above, I think, Lane Kiffin in my mind, because I think he has an offensive prowess. He has the ability to go get talent. And he just needs the resources to be able to do it. So I am, if I were to put a number one on my list right now, I'm actually leaning towards Hugh Freeze. I need to do a little bit more research on what kind of offense he runs. I've seen it a little bit, but I'm not going to pretend that I've delved into the depths of Hugh Freeze's offensive stuff.
Film review is going to be real fun for you over the next few months anyway.
It is. I just need to get I just need to get film on him. You know what I'm saying? Like I got to go find some film to be able to do that. And then we'll talk about the last one, which is Cadillac, which to me is the most intriguing one of them because I'm not sure Cadillac's ready for this job full time yet. But man, he showed me something last night, and I know what kind of spokesperson he can be for Auburn University. Does that mean he needs to be the head coach? No.
Right.
Does that mean we'd be a fool to not have him on the staff? Yes. But with the right people around him, he could be successful. He's going to have to stop going for it on fourth down from the 25. Like, you just can't do that. I don't care how much confidence you have in your guys. Like, that's just something I don't want to see coaches do in pretty much any scenario. But I think that he could potentially be a guy that can put a championship caliber mindset on the field, because that's a big thing. That's a big thing of just having your guys believe. Yeah. And clearly him being the running back coach wasn't enough for that to permeate through the entirety of the team. And so you can't discount, because that's to the point that was made earlier about what Coach Prime could do for a locker room, right? Now, recruiting wise, I think it's Deion hands down. Whether you can't compare Carnell to Deion as far as brands, but what he could do for a locker room as far as motivating, like that was Chiswick level motivation I saw going on from Cadillac last night. Like, he had those young men believing they could beat anybody. And we're still not a good football team, but they believe they could beat anybody, and that matters a lot. So I think he deserves at least an interview. These next couple of games are going to go a long way to determine whether or not that was a flash in the pan or whether or not they just believe in him that much and that it will extend beyond a single game. But that's how I break it down.
I'm gonna give you my thoughts after we do the giveaway. We're gonna continue this conversation because we did note some of you guys' comments and who you like to see. Me and Ike will definitely be breaking that down. But for now, we're giving away, guys, something. We're giving away a mug courtesy of GWT2 Energy Consulting Services. Shout out to our guy Walt. If you want to enter to win, should have done it already, but hashtag get your weight up in the comments. Once this comes down, Ike will be ready to pull, and we ain't waiting, guys. It's time.
Right. It's time to do it, man. Let's get to it. Hashtag get your weight up. 79 of you have entered. Only one can win. Courtesy of GWT2 Energy Consulting Services. A War Rapport mug is going to Matt K.
Hey,
Matt K, are you still here? If you are, let us know, and you will be able to get yourself a mug.
Ike, be on the lookout for him. I'm gonna be looking elsewhere and doing different stuff. But congratulations to Matt K. Please be here, or we will definitely draw again for sure. Let's kind of pick it back up, Ike, with the conversation of who we would like to see. I got two answers. Because usually how this works, Ike, is over the past several years, I have a guy who I'm impressed with, who I'd like to see Auburn hire, and they hired the complete opposite. Okay. So what I'm doing is I'm doing what could be a potential likely hire.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm going to do the guy who I like. As a matter of fact, I'm going to do who I like first. I agree with you about Hugh Freeze. When Hugh Freeze was at Ole Miss, not only were they good on offense, one of the issues we've had has been quarterback play. What did Hugh Freeze do with quarterbacks? Different skill sets, pocket QBs, mobile QBs. What has he done with quarterbacks?
Yeah.
But not only then, the defense played well. The defense played pretty good yesterday against Arkansas on the road. He actually has, the whole idea of land shark defense, that came from Hugh Freeze. So we've seen not only is he good on offense, but the team as a whole is a good team. So I think and this is a coach who's done well recruiting, but also someone who is hungry to get back to the SEC and prove himself. And for this job, you already are going to have to go toe-to-toe with two of the best coaches in the country, and Nick Saban and Kirby Smart. A guy who has that kind of hunger, who has a proven track record, to your point, of doing more with less, and wants to prove that he belongs in this conference with the resources, with the timing. I think Hugh Freeze would be a good fit in that regard. Now, again, to your point, we don't know if this man is rehabilitated, but I do know this: college football has changed a lot. NIL has changed a lot. And I think some of the things that some of these coaches have been guilty of, NIL solves that. So who's to say, outside of personal things with Hugh, the recruiting violations and whatnot, I don't foresee that being an issue now that college football has pivoted a bit. So I like the idea of Hugh Freeze because of the opportunity, because of what he's done at multiple places, as well as his hunger and desire to get back to proving that he can be one of the guys in the SEC. Likely, I'm leaning Lane in terms of likely. And it doesn't really have much to do with X's and O's, Ike, because for some of the same reasons that frustrates you with Lane frustrates me as well, with his in-game decisions and the fact that defense has become an afterthought with him when the game is going on. It's an issue in matter of alignment. When you consider how Harsin got to Auburn, all the reports that came out earlier last week, it was a complete cluster in terms of how we ended up with Brian Harsin. From the school president to the athletic director to boosters, nobody was on the same page at any one given point in time. Now we have a new school president who hired his own AD. So the idea is that they will be on the same page. The AD has come from Mississippi, who has watched Lane up close and personal, right? So he knows Lane. He's aware of Lane. I don't see the president having a problem with signing off on Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin doesn't come with the type of baggage that a Hugh Freeze comes with.
Right.
And if the boosters like him, then you have alignment across all three phases, all three groups with Lane, which means Lane won't have a shortage of resources to do his job. That's something that Harsin never had the opportunity to be able to say because of the dysfunction and because of how he came to Auburn. I like the idea of having alignment here, and I think the timing is right because I think there's a sense of desperation amongst Auburn that we don't want to continue to go backward when our biggest rivals are surging ahead. And so that's why I think likely it could be Lane. Again, I get it. I'm not crazy about some of the stuff Lane does or the fact, because again, we're going to be frustrated with, I'm frustrated with Lane's defense, and I'm an Auburn guy. I couldn't imagine him having on being on our sideline doing half that crap. But I think I have a hard time if our president signs off on a Hugh Freeze. Who's going to be willing to jump out there and take Hugh Freeze given the baggage that comes with him? I'm not sure if our president is willing to do that, which is why I think that's a big hindrance to Hugh Freeze, even though I like him. Deion, I think will be amazing for Auburn. Amazing for Auburn. The question is, if he gets an opportunity to go to Florida State, does he take it? That's a question to ask. If he has an opportunity to coach at Florida State, does he go there? Now, you can't be worried about that. I mean, even if he does do that, you think about if he is successful at Auburn, he set us up to be really good down the road anyway. But that would be my concern with Deion. I think he will surround himself with a great staff. I think he's committed to winning. I think he's won at everything he's done when it comes to football. I have no reason to suspect he wouldn't be successful. But I think the guys who are pulling the trigger really like Lane. And I think that may be the likely pick if Lane wants to come to Auburn. So those are my thoughts. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with anything you said. I've said to some people privately, and I'll say it here on the channel because I actually believe this, that the other thing that I see about Deion Sanders as a potential coach is he could just be doing all of this for the PR of it and then turn around and say, because here's what he's been selling to recruits, is that it doesn't matter. You can come play at an HBCU and still get to the league, right?
Yeah.
He's been convincing athletes to eschew Power 5 offers and go to an HBCU. And it would look a little hypocritical for him to then take an offer to go coach in the Power 5 and asking athletes to do the exact opposite for the last few years. He could be doing all of this just to turn around and say, they offered me blah, 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 but I chose to stay here at Jackson State, so that he then amplifies his own message even louder. He could 100% be doing that. And I think it would be a brilliant tactical move on his part to be able to double down on his own messaging. So I think that to me is the thing that you can't take out of the equation with the hype of or surrounding Coach Prime, even as much as I believe that he'll be a home run in the recruiting thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's why I'm not really hitching my wagon to the Coach Prime to Auburn thing. Whether I think it would be a good hire, right? Like, it has nothing to do with whether or not it could work. It definitely could work. I just don't know that it's likely to work because of what Deion Sanders has been preaching. As far as Lane Kiffin and the alignment that you're talking about, I don't disagree with any of that. I still have the same issues with it, but if somehow with the money situation being different, the contract situation being different, we could get a good defensive coordinator in here with Lane Kiffin that he could mesh with. Because here's the thing, you can be a good DC, and again, your play caller is hanging you out to dry so much, or they're running so much tempo stuff that your defense doesn't get to and so the defense doesn't look as good, right? So you kind of have to have alignment on vision about what we want to be as a program, so that we are able to fit one another well. And you can be a good defensive coordinator and just not personality wise mesh with the head coach / offensive coordinator, and it doesn't work. Right. So there's a lot of things that you have to iron out as far as alignment goes in that matter. It's not like, this person's a good DC, this person's a good offensive coordinator, this person's a good head coach, let's put them all on the same staff. That doesn't always necessarily work.
I was hearing people mention Will Muschamp as DC if you hire Lane. I asked someone, why on God's green earth would Will Muschamp leave Georgia to come be a DC for Lane, knowing how Lane calls games?
Yeah.
Like, why would he do that? He's already a DC at his alma mater, and he's coaching under a defensive-minded head coach who's not going to leave him out to dry at times. Like, why would he come here? So you need a special type of DC that will want to come play, knowing that, hey, I may have to send my team out there, my defense out there with a short field to defend because we went for it inexplicably on fourth down.
Yeah.
I don't. Yeah. Some of these names, and again, this is a great time to kind of hypothesize who we would like, and it's fun.
Yeah.
But it's not very realistic in many cases. I mean, Muschamp was here under Gus and was like, yeah, I'm out. I ain't doing this too much longer. So I don't see him coaching under a Lane. I really don't. Yeah. Let's go ahead and get to some of you guys' thoughts. Matt K, who was here earlier, I don't know if you've seen him since, but he said prime. He said he is here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. He says prime time. While you're here commenting, congratulations. We want you to do something for us really quick, sir. We need you to email us business at the War Rapport. Give us your physical address, and that mug will be coming your way shortly. Congratulations on winning the mug. Thanks for hanging out with us on the Weekend Tailgate. Felix the Cat, good to have you here, Felix. He says Lane Kiffin, head coach, lack assistant head coach. So let me ask you this, Ike. Cat is retained. Do we see an elevation in terms of his role with the team?
I think you have to do something to change what his positioning would be as far as the voice that he would have with this team. You need to elevate him in some sort of way. I don't know what that looks like, whether he is, a co-offensive coordinator, assistant head coach. You can't demote the guy who's currently in that position, right? Who people want in Zach Etheridge to be retained as well. But you got to figure something out, right? Like, so maybe, I don't know. Again, it gets tricky because there are people who are in position that people want to be retained. So if you do something like that, what happens with Zach Etheridge and what he's got responsibility for? What do you change him to? Like, or do you say, hey, Zach, you've been doing good at, I don't know. I don't know how do you parse all that stuff out? So
I will say this. I know last night I mentioned that I don't know if it's fair to the new coach to dictate who should be on their staff.
That's what I've been screaming from the beginning, right? Like, you can't tell him who to saddle. You can't saddle him with, hey, you can come coach here, but you got to keep my guys on your staff. Like, that's not fair.
At the very least, if you're going to do that, don't complain about boosters meddling. Right. You can't complain about them doing that and then turn around and dictate to the coach what he should, or be mad at them about who they should keep on staff. Like, we hired him to make those decisions, and that's usually what happens with these coaching changes. There will be casualties as a result that we didn't think about. We were just focused on the head coach who was the source of our misery. However, if Caddy is retained, Zach is retained, I'm throwing a personal party myself. I will say that because I do think they have proven to be very valuable on this current staff. Yeah. Debbie Norton says Dion with Caddy. I hear you. Ben Bloodworth asks, I'm curious about that Coastal Carolina guy. Now, Coastal Carolina has been they're a group of 5. Yeah,
Chadwell or something like that.
There you go. Jamie Chadwell. Someone else mentioned his name too. And Ben Bloodworth came back and said he needs an interview. What do you think about him? He's a group of 5, but he's been having some success over the past 3-4 years. Your thoughts on that, Ike?
It's always difficult to understand or determine whether or not somebody at the next level can have the same success they had at the previous level. He seems like he's a good coach, right? But I don't know enough about him to have an informed opinion on anything other than his ability to coach football. And that's as much as I had about Brian Harsin as well. And it wasn't like, it didn't turn out to be good, right? Like, so X's and O's wise, sure, he sounds like a good guy, but Does he have the ability to put the kind of organization together? Does he have the right kind of mentality when it comes to recruiting? He might be a ferocious recruiter as far as what he wants to sell, but he hasn't had the resources. And you give him some resources, he'll do better. I don't know the answer to any of those questions. But
Yeah.
does he deserve an interview? Sure. But just because
Yeah.
a guy interviews well doesn't mean he does the job well.
And I think
at this level,
what I've learned from watching Coach Harsin Ike is the success or the process that you have in place, the program or the how you run your organization works for where you are. Doesn't necessarily mean it will work at the SEC level.
right?
Because you have guys in this conference who are doing it at an extremely high level who may be doing it differently from what you're doing at your school. So the question is not can you coach?
Right.
Obviously you can coach, but can you hit the ground running and competing at a level with guys who are doing it at such a high level for years? That's really
already,
the big question.
right? Like, and that I think that's the issue with the Auburn job, right? Like the Auburn job can't be on the job training for someone.
Right.
Like you can get on the job training at Missouri, no disrespect, Missouri fans. You can get on the job training at Vanderbilt,
Kentucky.
disrespect to Vanderbilt fans.
Kentucky.
Yeah, Kentucky, you can get but Auburn's not an OJT job, bro. Like you need to come in here ready to coach. You know, you can say what you want to about Tennessee. Tennessee's not an on the job training type of situation. Florida, you know, they took a chance with Napier, but that's not a job you want the guy coming in figuring it out. He needs to come in with a plan and go in and start executing that plan. So there's going to be a lot of pressure on Cohen to be able to sift through who talks well in interviews and do a lot of the background research on what kind of guy am I getting here? Not somebody who just says all the right things, but can come in day one with a plan. Let's execute it. Let's get the right people in the rooms and let's figure out how to put a winner on the field.
Indeed.
So that's tough.
Susan Scales, she likes Cadillac. War Damn PJM says Coach Prime from me, 100. Nicholas Frazier asks, if hired, is Coach Caddy that Pat Dye type of hire for Auburn? What are your thoughts on that, Ike?
I mean, so Pat Dye type of hire, it depends on what you mean by that. Like, I get everybody, the enthusiasm around Cadillac is well-deserved, and I don't know the answer to that, whether he is the type of hire that stabilizes a program, gives you long-term success over a period of, you know, years and not just one season here and there. I don't know the answer to that today, not based off of one game. I can't give you that answer off of one game, 1 week, a short week at that, where Mississippi State had no idea what to prepare for. You got game film out there now. You've got time to put a good plan in place. We'll see, you know, give it 2 or 3 more games, and then maybe we can circle back to this question.
For sure. Phil Petway says, hire Dion. He wants Dion. Reggie says, I don't think your AD will welcome Freeze to Auburn. Again, that's what I mentioned. It's an alignment problem with Freeze. I'm not quite sure. Well, even the AD, the president, he could get past the AD. I'm not sure if the president would even like it. So again, across those 3 entities, I don't know if Freeze has a good chance. Again, we just seen what he's done in the past. I think he could work out at Auburn for sure. But good comment there. Imani Smoot says it would be amazing if Deion Sanders, the head coach with Cadillac, Ike Hilliard, Zach Etheridge, Trevon Reed on the same staff. I'm with that if it happens. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Trevon Reed moving forward too.
I don't see any reason why Trevon shouldn't continue. Like he has, he's been delivering. He's been out there working hard. He's a good spokesperson for Auburn. I don't see any reason why he shouldn't be able to be retained. But again, not my call.
Right. Aaron Finney says, sorry, guys. Last night I was hard on Papo. He was out of position in that QB run late in the game, but he wasn't good or bad. He was just there. Again, we're not saying that he was great either. It's just that nothing stood out with him in terms of what he did on defense that was egregious. But again, to your point, it's been the run fits with him that has made him look really bad at times. And in a game against Mississippi State, those issues don't show up as much, so he doesn't look as bad.
And I don't know, I haven't gone back to watch that play, whether he was out of position because he did something that he wasn't supposed to do, or whether he was out of position because he was where he was supposed to be, and that just opened up in that way. Like there are like, because if his responsibility wasn't the quarterback, then he wasn't supposed to be there. Like if he had the running back and the running back flares out, then he was where he was technically supposed to be based upon the defense. And it was just a good call or a good read by the quarterback. So I don't know the answer to that right now.
Right. We'll know more tomorrow with Watch the Film for sure. Walt Taylor says, I'm concerned about Deion's health. He has to have a stool on the sidelines. Also, I think that the new AD is the one who turned in Freeze. Interesting. Very interesting. So, again, I think that goes back to the previous person's comment about he's not quite sure if Freeze would have an end with Auburn.
Yeah.
Ben Bloodworth asks about Dale McGee. I hear Dale McGee's name quite a lot.
But Dale McGee in what capacity, right?
Head coach.
So you're back to the Cadillac issue, right? Which is he's never been a head coach before. I don't know what I don't know the answer to is whether or not Dale McGee is a good head coach. I know he's a great running back coach. I know he's a great recruiter. I don't know if he's a good head coach. I'm not against the idea of Dale McGee, but again, this can't be on the job training, right? Like you have to have certainty that they can at least do the job. Whether they will have success, a lot of things factor into that, right? Like the health of the players when they get here. And, again, the alignment that you're going to have amongst the staff and putting the right people in place. Can Dale McGee do all of those things? He's never had to do it before, so I don't know the answer. A lot of people point to the Dabo thing, right? Like where Dabo was never really a head coach before he got to Clemson.
It took him a while, though, to get things going.
To be fair, though, it wasn't like success was day one, and Clemson didn't have a history of being successful, so the expectations weren't the same. So he had the opportunity to learn that job.
Right.
Will Auburn have that patience? If they will, then yes, you can definitely bring in a Dale McGee and let him figure it out because he's been around coaches that have done it. He should know kind of how to operate. But Cadillac's been around a program for a long time. He will tell. If we were to talk to Cadillac right now, and if you listen to him talk about the difference in being a coordinator or a position group leader and being the head coach, you got way more responsibilities of things that you need to be able to figure out how to get into the same 24 hours changes day one. Like that 24 hours, you got way more stuff that you've got to figure out how to get organized, and you've got more pieces of the puzzle that you have to be looking over, and you got to figure out how to compartmentalize those things and focus on the things that are necessary as the head coach and not the guy who's over running backs. It's a different thing. And we don't know how people transition to those different things yet. So Dale McGee, again, I think that he has a lot of great things that come with him. I just don't know if he's ready to be a head coach. I don't know that anybody knows that, but we'll find out.
Right.
I think sooner or later, somebody's going to take a chance on him. Is it going to be an SEC school or a Power 5 school day one? I don't know. But again, I have to stress, you need to have some patience if you're going to have Dale McGee as the hire.
And I don't think Auburn has that patience. And Dabo seat got a little warm before he started figuring some things out. Like Clemson got to one point where they wanted to move on from Dabo, and then Dabo caught fire. So again, that was 4 years in, I think, almost into his tenure when things started to turn around for him. So again, are we willing to give the next coach 4 years?
Right.
So, and with Kirby was with Nick at LSU, followed him to the Dolphins, followed him to Alabama. So he watched a man basically build a program twice. So, that could translate. I think that's why he was an attractive candidate, in my opinion, when we hired Gus.
Right.
But you still didn't know until he got hired from Georgia. We now know after the fact.
Hindsight is always the first couple of years with with Kirby, it was like, I don't know if he's making the right decisions right now in these games. I mean, I remember a lot of people saying, I was one of the people like, I don't know that he knows how to pick a starting quarterback.
Right.
He doesn't have the eye for who should be the starting quarterback for his teams right now.
Oh yeah, he was looking bad after old boy went to Ohio State and then was balling. Yeah, he was looking bad at that point. But look at him now. Look at him now. So good comment there. Blair Coker asked, any info on Dave Aranda as a candidate?
I haven't heard anything about Dave Aranda as a serious candidate. I don't think he's even looking to leave Baylor right now. So I'm a big Dave. If you listen to the Auburn Express, you would have heard me talk about. I'm a big fan of what Dave Aranda could bring potentially with his former SEC prowess as being the defensive coordinator at LSU, and him being over at Baylor now as a head coach, having that head coaching experience. I like what he does, but I don't know how serious a candidate he would be.
Yeah. Lance Lippold, he's the head coach at Kansas State. Thoughts on him?
Yeah, he is a similar one where though Kansas, he's Kansas's head coach. Though they're playing better under him, and he has built that program, it's still different. It's still different. So this is the same thing. This is going to be different than the Dale McGee conversation for me, right? This is the same thing I would have as a conversation about Mark Stoops, whose name has been coming up in the coaching candidate search, is that coaching at Kansas and Kentucky is different than coaching at Auburn. It's just different, man. Like, I don't know how to explain that to you other than just saying it's different, right? And the expectations are going to be different day one. And though you've coached before at a Power 5 program, you've not coached before at a Power 5 program where the pressure to win is as magnified as it is here. Like, if Mark Stoops had the coaching record here at Auburn that he had at Kentucky, he wouldn't have a job today. He wouldn't. And he's shown steady progress, but it took him a couple of years before he even was able to get to double-digit wins. He would not still be coaching here if he had started here instead of Kentucky. I don't know whether now he's in a better position because of what he's done already. And he recruits offensive line really well to that school. He puts tough defenses out there. They're known for running the ball. He does all the things that Auburn fans say that they love, right? Auburn fans don't like Mark Stoops, though, right? Like, it's crazy. Like, he does all the stuff that everybody's like, yeah, we love this stuff. Run the ball, play tough defense. If you just give this guy some more resources, they can be a winner. But they will not say that about Mark Stoops. It's literally the same argument, though.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I think the same thing of Lance. I just don't know what I don't know about him yet.
And people have mentioned his name. What do you think about Dan Lanning?
Dan Lanning's another one where, number one, good Lord, the buyout that they'd have to get him away from Oregon after just 1 year is crazy.
That's wild that you get a buyout that serious.
Yeah. But he's another one I think that he's attractive from the standpoint of his SEC ties, of course, because he was just at Georgia. But I don't know what I need to see from him yet in order for me to get on the Dan Lanning train, because no disrespect to the Pac, no, all disrespect to the Pac-12. It's the Pac-12.
Yeah,
like,
sure.
I'm not impressed with winning the Pac-12.
Yeah.
And which he hasn't even actually won yet, but I'm not impressed with winning in the Pac-12. Let me say that.
Wes, welcome. Thank you for becoming a member of the War Rapport family.
But thank you, Wes. Yeah.
Okay. Ben Bloodworth says Dale's been under Kirby since 2016. That's pretty similar. Hey, could be. Again,
it's not exactly similar because even though his title is assistant coach or whatever it is, he's still just the run. And I say he's still the run game coordinator. Kirby Smart was the defensive coordinator. So I say the responsibility of running a room is different than the responsibility of running a side of the football. And it's way different than the responsibility of being a head coach. So unless Kirby has been actively grooming him to be like, all right, Dale, you got it this week. You're going to run practice and this and this and that, which I don't know if he is or is not, or Dale McGee has not been studious in that way to be like, all right, well, this is how coach does this. And this is how coach does this. And if that's the case and Dale McGee really wants to be a head coach and he's been prepping himself for this opportunity, then he's got all of the intangibles that you want to be able to have. Now,
he would have to be a CEO style of a coach, though.
Right. But I don't know that. Again, I don't know the answer to that. Like, just being in the room with people doesn't necessarily mean that rubbed off on you.
Right.
No matter how long you've been in that room.
Okay. I think that's good talk from now. We gave our thoughts again. I already know who I think likely may be the guy versus who I'd like to see. You've given your thoughts. Good conversation here on that. And guys, if you're watching on replay, we definitely want to hear your thoughts. We've been seeing you guys' thoughts as well. Good conversation, guys. I tell the people what they need to be doing right now.
You need to go ahead and become a member of the War Rapport. Listen, man, we got some great film stuff that I'm going to try to get done for you. I'm going to try to crank out a couple of them this week because people have been asking about some certain things. I'm even going to try to see if I can sneak some basketball in this week, man. I don't know if I'm going to sleep at all this week with all the film I'm going to have to cut up, but we'll see how much I can get cranked out for you guys. It's a weird time of the year because we have football and basketball going on at the same time, so I have to figure out how I'm going to split my duties, but you have to be a patron in order to get all of that stuff. If you are a member right now and you want to gift a membership to another person, you can definitely do that from the live chat from your computer. Congrats to our guy, Matt, who won the mug today. But if you did not win something, but you want something, you can go over to the warreport.com. A lot of great things going on over there. Later this week, C-Dub is going to be dropping his power rankings again. Going to be interesting to see how this week's power rankings go with all of the turmoil that has happened in SEC over this past week. So the write-up on that is going to be at thewarreport.com, as well as the shop. You can go over there and cop you a little something to show your support of all the things that we got going on with the War Rapport. Last but not least, we are the Auburn Express. Some more audio content, audio-only content. I've been sitting in for Mike on Mike Mac and the Memes podcast, but we will likely start to do a little basketball content as well. So we're going to have more audio-only stuff. If you want to hear that conversation that B. Will was hinting at earlier with our guy Off Script TV, that is pod only right now. There's some snippets of that floating around social media and on our shorts here on YouTube, but the full conversation is at the Auburn Express. So you guys want to make sure you go and check that out over there as well.
Lawrence asked, what did we see? Listen, we're going to try to work that in at some point this week, but B's not here and you wouldn't even get your money's worth because you wouldn't get your Jimbo rent. So we'll try to work in on what did we see at some point this week. We did not forget about that, but it's just me and Ike. We're missing Mike as well as B. So we'll try to figure out how we do what did we see this week at some point. So you can definitely get our thoughts on last weekend's games. Also, Christian Crawford says he wants to talk about basketball real quick. Christian, check with us. We're doing a pre-game on tomorrow. So check with us then. You'll get our thoughts about that there. So guys, we want to thank y'all so much for hanging out with us. And we want to welcome those of you who have become members today. We gladly appreciate you guys hanging out with us. Also, man, we want to shout out Athletic Architects for being a supporter of the Weekend Tailgate. Please be sure to go to buildthehouse.com so that you can begin planning your financial future today. I want to thank you guys also for hanging out with us on this show. You already know what to do. I've been saying it throughout the show, but share this video on social media so that people can find our content and join in on the conversation. We had a really good show today. They may want to give their thoughts and weigh in. Also, before you get out of here, and if you haven't done so already, smash that like button. And if you're new to our channel, please subscribe and help us to grow our numbers. Also, if you want to interact with us on social media, I already mentioned some content that we've been putting out there as it pertains to the interview or the conversation about Dion. You can find some of those Instagram, Twitter, at the War Rapport. That's also Facebook as well. You can find us at TW Report on TikTok as well. That's it for now, guys, but enjoy the rest of your Sunday. And as always, War Eagle.